In a podcast we released back in December, we pointed out that over 15 bodies were found in Chicago waterways in 2022. And a lot of the bodies found were actually of specifically young men in their 20s or early 30s and were said to be coming home from a party or bar late at night. In December specifically, not one, but two men were found. One was just 23 years old and the other one was 21. Christophe Subert and Peter Salvino were their names. In December's podcast, we also went through tweets and social media forums to see how the general public, and more specifically Chicago citizens, felt about this tragic pattern. Some shared their suspicion of the cause of deaths, thinking there could be a serial killer in Chicago. For example, one person tweeted, "The amount of men in their early mid-20s that have gone missing this year is insane. Their bodies are then found in the lake hours later. Huge red flags." However, others stated it is actually common for people to fall into Chicago waterways and unfortunately die due to the freezing temperatures, also pointing out that this happens every single year and that it is not a serial killer. Although we first thought it was pretty crazy that two young men both drowned in Chicago within a few weeks in December, we dove digger. Wait.
What is wrong with you?
We dug deeper, and I agreed with the latter. I genuinely thought that these were just tragic cases of young men that fell into Chicago waterways at night.
As did I. I mean, once we looked at all the evidence and just, confirmation bias, it became pretty evident that it happened to be just all an accident.
Also, I didn't realize, I've been to Chicago probably at least 10 times by now, but for some reason, I did not realize that the break wall is so easy to just kind of fall in. I was like, okay, I get it. It could just be tragic accidents that happen every year to about 15 people. But then we started receiving comments on our podcast updating us that more people have started going missing.
It's weird that there's a pretty much stale MO on who these people are. Mm-hmm. College-aged individuals.
Especially because the two recent ones in December both kind of fit this same 20 to 25-year-olds. And these two that happened early 2023, it's only April, 23-year-old Illinois college student Anthony Rucker. Then 24-year-old Joel Orduno was reported missing, and Seamus Gray, a 21-year-old U.S. Navy service member, disappeared in Waukegan after leaving an area bar. He has still not yet been found. So we thought we would do another podcast. People kept kind of thanking us for bringing awareness to this because in December we were the first honk our own horn. I'm the least confident person ever, but we were the first podcast to report on this.
Yeah, there were some chirpings on Reddit, and most of the stuff on Reddit's there's no serial killer. There's some stuff on Twitter where there is a serial killer, and then Barstool did an article that was inaccurate, which we pointed out. Thank you. Yeah. This is proper journalism. Maybe they should put cameras up on the brick wall.
Yeah.
Catch this person throwing him in.
Or have a drone flying back and forth on the brick wall.
Yeah, I feel someone would shoot that down.
Well, you can have more. So in this episode of Cauldron Convos, we will be discussing the tragic and recent deaths of these three young men, the possibility of a serial killer in Chicago, and if so, the plausibility of the return of the smiley face killer. And just to add, obviously we are not professional. I guess not obviously. We might be professional.
I don't think I have to tell anybody that this is just an opinion of mine. I'm in a green alien man.
I like putting it out there that we're not professionals. We're not claiming to be. We are just simply taking information, putting it together for your ease of
for the public
access. Yeah.
Smoke for the public.
That being said, we wanted to quickly ask you guys to please consider subscribing to our channel because we post every single week. We post 2 to 3 videos every week, some on paranormal stuff, true crime stuff. Please subscribe. Okay, back to the video. So first, we're going to start with Anthony Rucker. What happened to him as he was the first to go missing in 2023 and the first to go missing since the two young men in December. Anthony was reported missing on February 13th, and he was found dead just a few days later. According to CBS Chicago, the body was found in Chicago's Sanitary and Ship Canal. So it says that the Chicago Police Marine Unit recovered the body of a male from the waterway in the 3700 block of South Pulaski Road a little after 2 p.m. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office identified the person as Anthony Rucker, 23.
Yeah, and I would say it's pretty equally easy to jump in or fall into the river on the Riverwalk in Chicago. I would say it's a little bit harder than the break wall per se. But getting to the break wall after a night out, unless you're in Lakeview or Lincoln Park right on the water, is going to be a little bit more difficult than the Riverwalk, which kind of goes through the center of the city.
NBC Chicago said Anthony Rucker, 23, was reported missing on February 13th, and Chicago police recovered his body 3 days later in the Chicago River, near the same thing as CBS. And they said that the medical examiner's office determined Rucker had taken his own life, and the primary cause of death was ruled as drowning.
I wonder if he jumped off a bridge or something. Is there anything about that?
No, there's nothing there. Then it also says detectives are conducting a death investigation, so I guess maybe that's just...
I mean,
I don't know.
I think when you rule it a suicide, you don't have evidence of anything else any other foul play, which is interesting. But it's also interesting that, a man 23 years old shows up with no signs of foul play in the river. Kind of fits the MO of everyone else that has fallen in the river in this past year and a half. Interesting that the police department or I guess not the police department, but the medical examiner has determined that it's a suicide, meaning it's a homicide. I mean, maybe they found something personal that suggested that it was a suicide, but it was more or less him drowning
like
by himself. Yeah. So I guess without further information, we can't really know for this specific case, but I think it does fit the MO.
Anthony Rucker was reported missing on February 13th. Now, the next person reported missing was Joel Orduno, and he was reported missing on February 17th. So just 4 days later.
Yikes, yeah.
But his body wasn't found for about a month.
That's terrible.
So he was last seen at his residence in the 2700 block of North Monticello Avenue around 1 a.m. on February 17th, 2023. He was found on March 17th, on St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah, I guess so. So he was gone for a literal month.
Yeah.
Now, is there any sort of indication of how long he had been dead for?
So it says it was not known what happened to Joel and his cause of death. His friends and family shared their condolences on social media posts. The body was recovered from the 2700 block of North Leavitt Street in Lincoln Park, according to police and the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. His brother started a GoFundMe page that we will put in the description of the video, like we did in the last episode. And then it says, on March 28th, the Medical Examiner's Office told NBC5 that the cause and manner of death in Orduno's case is still under investigation. Now, that was March 28th. I don't think, since I did this research.
I would say probably not.
No, so...
That's terrible.
And it's interesting because NBC5 posted an article on March 28th, and the title is, Chicago Drownings Unsolicited Taxi Rides Spark Speculation, but officials say cases aren't related.
Interesting that people were getting like an unsolicited cab ride and then end up dead. Oh my God.
But we're going to go more into that when we talk about what people have to say, including like the medical examiners, the police department. We're going to go into that in a little bit. The next young man that was reported missing was Seamus Gray, who was 21 years old. He vanished on March 18th in Waukegan, Illinois.
And he was the Navy sailor.
Yes.
And for people who aren't familiar with geography, Waukegan is really not that far from Chicago. It's about an hour north.
Yeah. Surveillance video around 1:30 a.m. shows Gray dressed in red standing outside the Ibiza bar on Genesee Street with friends.
He was in the Navy, and to my understanding, Great Lakes Naval Base, like the basic training for the Navy, is very close to Waukegan.
So it is near the water. Well, I guess Waukegan Harbor and Marina, it's like right across the street.
Okay. I mean, regardless, it still fits the MO of the smiley face killer, kind of.
He was standing with friends after managers said he appeared drunk and was asked to leave. 100 U.S. Navy personnel helped in a search, which ended after an extensive effort and no sign of the missing Navy sailor. Although he was in, quote, close proximity to the harbor in Waukegan along Lake Michigan, exhaustive searches on land and water have come up empty. According to Waukegan Police Commander Scott Chaston at a press conference, he said, "We did search the heavily wooded area, the beaches along the coast of the water, and also the Coast Guard was out on the water as well searching. After an extensive search, exhausting all of our efforts, we made it all the way back to the base and we were unable to locate him at this time." He said drones and a canine were used to help the searchers, which included Navy personnel. So we have 100 Navy personnel looking. We have the Coast Guard looking, police department, canine, drones, and they could not find him.
Yeah, and I feel like the Navy probably would have access. I know there aren't tides in Lake Michigan, but there's some sort of, the current, or I know there's some capacity of the wave or the storm pattern, and they'd basically be able to pretty accurately track where he would be if his body were to just have fallen in.
Yeah, and in addition to those people looking, the Waukegan Fire Department and Gurnee Fire Department divers searched a large area around the government pier in the harbor, but did not locate Seamus. A statement from the agency read, "Additionally, a surface swimmer searched an area around the Waukegan Yacht Club, but was unable to locate Seamus."
That's terrible. And has he been found yet?
I don't think so. I haven't looked again. But
as far as we're aware, he has not been found.
Lake and McHenry County Scanner.com. Local news. Mother of 21-year-old U.S. Navy sailor missing from Waukegan says son's body has not been recovered yet. That was posted on April 3rd, so that was yesterday. We're recording this.
On April 4th.
Okay, interesting. Here's an update that Waukegan Police Commander Scott Chasen said 3 canines indicated or showed interest in an area by the government pier. U.S. Navy personnel ran sonar in Lake Michigan at the Waukegan Harbor Tuesday evening searching for Gray. So they were conducting additional efforts, but still have not found him. It is interesting because Carrie Gray, his mother, Seamus Gray's mother, alleged that Seamus was assaulted outside of the establishment and was pickpocketed, which is an interesting ad.
Oh, yeah.
His mother also described Seamus as an exceptional young man willing to die serving and protecting his country, and one who should have been able to safely walk down a street no matter how preppy he looked. She said, "I got you, my baby boy. I will never stop looking for you. I live and breathe for you."
That's terrible. Yeah, oh, my God.
She was in Florida. Being someone in the Navy with his friends, I'm kind of surprised he left alone. Because, like, wouldn't you walk back to base? I mean, I guess anything could happen. He could be
just travel back to base. I don't know how it works, really.
Yeah,
but
I don't know how it works
I would
either,
assume that you'd be, like, with a friend group and then, like, I don't know.
They haven't released, like, what the friends that saw him last said.
Yeah.
Like, did he say he was going home? Did he,
get into a fight?
What was his last text message? Like, I haven't seen anything on that. And for this one, I wonder if they're not sharing as many details as last time.
Maybe that's because they think it's a murder investigation. This tends to be how it is.
Because we saw text messages, remember? We saw
with the Northwestern student that fell in the water.
Yeah. So what the medical examiner and police have to say and other people have to say about this. So the Chicago Police Department told NBC5, at this time there's no evidence suggesting that there is a connection between these drowning deaths. The Chicago Police Department conducts thorough death investigations as we work to bring a measure of closure to the families of these and all victims. This was found not super recently, but I think after we posted our last podcast, that in the case of Christophe Soubert, the medical examiner determined Soubert's cause of death was drowning with ethanol intoxication as a contributing factor, and the manner of death was ruled accidental. Salvino's cause of death was the same as Soubert's. The medical examiner determined Salvino had drowned with ethanol intoxication as a contributing factor, and the manner was also ruled accidental. What?
I don't like that answer.
Yeah. Just because someone's intoxicated doesn't mean that it was always in that, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, in addition to the police and the medical examiner office, let's look at other opinions as well. A Newsweek article titled, "Who is the Smiley Face Killer? Chicago Death Sparks Serial Killer Question." That article pointed out that the men found in 2022 shared the similarity of being in their 20s, very early 30s. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office told Newsweek that 3 of those cases were ruled accidents. 1 was ruled as suicide, and the other 7 were ruled as undetermined. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office told Newsweek in a statement, "When a drowning is unwitnessed and evidence of accident, suicide, or homicide is not present, the manner of death is ruled undetermined. If new evidence is presented, the office will review it and determine whether the initial ruling should be amended." I don't know if they use ethanol intoxication as the evidence of accident, or maybe just no sign of foul play.
Well, if there's no sign of foul play and they're looking for a reason to why he was dead in the water, why he went into the water, a pretty easy excuse from a police works perspective. If they want to close the case, I mean, that's a pretty easy way out of it. And if, especially, like, I feel like from a public service point of view, they're trying not to panic the public.
Especially Chicago, they have other shit.
I think that, like, a good way to avoid people from thinking, oh, there's a serial killer, is by saying, oh, they were just drunk and they fell in the water. And then people just kind of write it off. And then people keep living about their normal lives. Because when there are serial killers about, like, people get scared and it causes a lot of hysteria.
Additionally, some social media posts have drawn a connection between the drownings and reports of drivers across Chicago approaching patrons of bars or restaurants leaving for the night, offering rides home for cash or free outside of formal rideshare apps or taxi operations.
That's called a gypsy cab, everybody, and they're all over New York, especially the Bronx. They'll just drive by you slowly, go on their horn like that. And then you negotiate a rate, and then when you get to your destination, sometimes they're like, okay, it's going to be an additional $20.
One social media user said earlier this month, "I'm in Chicago. This happened to me 4 times in the last 2 months. The Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection told NBC5 it has received 12 complaints of fake taxis from January 1st, 2022 to March 27th, 2023. These complaints, that's not that many, 12 complaints. I mean, I guess who's complaining, you know?
Karen.
Yeah, and like how many gypsy cabs are approaching a Karen? Not many. I guess 12.
12.
These complaints were related to overcharging and taxi numbers not matching the top light and vehicle. The problem of
who takes note of that? Oh, you. Excuse me?
You are someone that would check the numbers on a cab.
Well, maybe because I don't want to get murdered.
See? You would.
I didn't even think about that. I don't remember the last time I took a cab.
Yeah, that's true.
It was an Uber.
The problem of unsolicited rides is not new, and public safety advocates say people should never accept these offers or rides. When using rideshare apps like Uber or Lyft, advocates recommend customers confirm that the vehicle that pulls up is the ride that was assigned to them via the app, including confirming the vehicle's make, model, and license plate number. I also wanted to see what loved ones of these people that have gone missing have to say about the potential serial killer theory. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, a lot of the parents or the family members are like against the theory. So I'm not saying that this one person proves that it's okay to have the theory.
I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for one of these poor men to disappear, and then their family, then his body washes up a week later, and it shows that he was piss drunk or whatever. He's super intoxicated. And then his family or his friends come out and say, this guy doesn't drink.
Whoa.
And then that's when we're going to get some fucking answers. Well, probably not, but the cops will be like, oh, well, he drank this night, of course.
A woman named Elise Mary went missing in March 2022, so over a year ago now, but 1 week after she went missing, CBS 2 reported her body was found in Lake Michigan near the Chicago-Evanston border. Her loved one, Alexis Martinez, was actually interviewed by CBS News, and CBS asked Martinez whether she had heard the serial killer rumors. So this is pretty recently.
Interesting, but this is over a year ago.
Yeah, but I think the CBS News interview was more recently because they were remembering her one year
anniversary.
Death.
Okay.
Yeah. So CBS asked Martinez whether she had heard the serial killer rumors, and Martinez said, I've heard of this, that there is a serial killer pushing people off the rocks. Martinez said, it's a possibility.
Geez.
If there is a serial component, it's something that should be considered and not just dismissed. So even a loved one of someone that went missing is noting that this should be looked into more. I'm not saying this is every single loved one of everyone that's been missing, but I just thought, hey, what does Reddit, what do internet forums think about this?
What do the people say?
What do the people say? There have been some more posts on Reddit, most likely due to the recent 3 drownings in 2023 so far. Most of these opinions are just crazy theories and that there's not actually a serial killer, which is kind of shocking. I thought that people would kind of turn around a little bit here and there and be like, maybe
there maybe is a serial killer because just more and more people keep washing up.
I don't know. I found something weird.
Hit me.
It's in the Reddit page or Reddit. What is it called again? Thread. r/scary stories. So I'm assuming that this is someone that's just writing scary stories.
Yeah, I feel like that's creepypasta. But I feel like there are a certain level of them. They're supposed to be quote unquote real. But I think there are some people that go to liberty, have liberties, creative liberties.
This guy Scribble.
Nice.
Wait, no, he was online 3 minutes ago. Okay, I was like, I had a theory that he was dead.
Whoa.
Because it's weird. He wrote a story called, I started hunting 2 Chicago area serial killers tonight. Wish me luck. For some time now, bodies have been found and subsequently pulled from the waterways of Chicago. The Chicago River and Lake Michigan both have been the frequent sites of multiple body recovery operations. To a lesser degree, the Des Plaines River has also seen and shared the death in the greater Chicago area. Not just the waterways, the city has had a rough go for a long time. So how common is drowning? I wanted to look into this a bit more because we did touch on it in the last episode. I wanted to dig a little bit deeper. So according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, there are an estimated 4,000 fatal unintentional drownings in the United States every year. More than half of fatal and non-fatal drownings among people aged 15 and older happen in natural waters like lakes, rivers, or oceans. It added that nearly 80% of people who die from drownings are male. So I thought that was interesting. The people that aren't dying in natural waters are dying in like bathtubs, pools, that kind of thing. Reported drownings in Cook County during the winter months of December through February have slightly decreased since 2018 to 2019. Jumping to December 2022 through February 2023, there have been 8 reported drownings countywide, including 4 drownings ruled as accidental, 2 ruled as suicides, and 2 ruled as undetermined. Data from the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office shows a majority of drowning investigations are ruled accidental, with 61% labeled as such since 2018. Nearly 1 in 3 drownings since 2018 were ruled as undetermined, or examiners did not have enough evidence to conclude the manner of death. CBS News looked into the last 8 years of drowning data in Cook County, and the graph shows all drownings from homicides to suicides from bathtubs to lakefronts. The number of drownings fluctuated from under 50 to over 70 per year. Over those 8 years, there's been a total of 5 drownings classified as homicide, so not many of the 50 to over 70. The chief medical examiner, Dr. Pony Arunkumar, said, "When we're looking for evidence of foul play, we're looking for any blunt force injury." And over those 8 years, there were 148 cases ruled undetermined. Arunkumar said, "We may call it a homicide or we'll say undetermined, unless that we're seeing these injuries that are suspicious of foul play. If they're just minor injuries and they're not significant enough to tell us that resulted in them drowning." So Chicago, Illinois has a history of notorious serial killers. Most notoriously those of John Wayne Gacy in the 1970s. Additionally, the Chicago Strangler is believed to be responsible for the deaths of over 50 unsolved murders in Chicago, mostly black women murdered in a disturbingly similar fashion of strangulation in Chicago's south and west sides, typically found in abandoned alleyways, and nearly half of them had a history of sex work. So according to a report on the FBI's website, although hard to define, a serial murder is the unlawful killing of 2 or more victims by the same offender in separate events. Essentially, to link murders to a serial killer, we cannot just notice patterns in the murders or victims. We need to confirm the DNA of the offender. I'm going to read this article from Newsweek by Lauren Giella, which is really good. It was published February 9th, 2023, and the title is "Who is a Smiley Face Killer? Chicago Death Sparks Serial Killer Questions," and I'm just going to read a lot from it. In 1997, 2 retired New York detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, and criminal justice professor Lee Gilbertson, advanced the Smiley Face murder theory. This came after 3 college-age men were found dead in city rivers around the same time. They believe that a string of young men found dead in bodies of water across several Midwestern states from the late 1990s to the 2010s was the work of a serial killer or a group of serial killers. In most cases, the official cause of death is listed as an accidental drowning. The detectives have investigated the deaths of at least 45 college-aged men who were found dead in the water in 11 states in the early 2000s. As of now, Gannon told Newsweek that there are 681 cases in the database that they suspect may be connected. Gannon told CNN in 2008 that he believed the men were drugged and abducted from bars, held and possibly mentally or physically abused before being killed. Duarte said that all of the young men were popular, athletic, and good students, who they believe were targeted. While he hasn't looked much into the recent bodies discovered in Chicago, Gannon said he believes that they are connected. "The fact that you have so many of them in such a short period of time, I have to say that I would say that they are connected," he said. He said the group is becoming more brazen because they know they can do whatever they want. Of course they are picking it up, and why wouldn't they? There's no consequence to what they're doing. The name Smiley Face comes from a graffiti depicting a smiley face along with 13 other distinct symbols found near the locations where they believe the killers dumped the bodies, Gannon told Newsweek. The group is actually leaving symbols behind letting you know, yes, this was us, come and catch us, adding that each city has their own symbols. In 2008, the FBI debunked this theory after receiving information about young college-aged men who were found deceased in rivers in the Midwest. Special Agent Richard Kolko said in a statement at the time, "To date, we have not developed any evidence to support links between these tragic deaths or any evidence substantiating the theory that these deaths are the work of a serial killer or killers." He added that the majority of these incidents appear to be alcohol-related drownings. The nonprofit Center for Homicide Research in Minneapolis also released a report debunking the smiley face killer theory due to a lack of physical evidence of a serial killer, no signs of torture or blunt force trauma on the bodies that could point to the deaths being homicide. But this has not deterred Gannon and Duarte. These deaths are instead the work of a multi-state gang of killers. Gannon said this is a well-structured, organized group with cells in major cities around the United States. He said each city could have been between 8 to 20 members. The motive of the group remains unknown, he said, adding that these cases are, quote, gang-oriented, adding that the group chooses a narrow, specific group to target. In his experience, Gannon said that there are some victims pulled from waterways that were not very drunk and did not have water in their lungs, which would be expected in a drowning. He also said traces of GHB, known as the date rape drug, were found in some of the victims' bodies. Gannon said the odorless, tasteless drug could be slipped into a victim's drink when people are leaving the bar.
It's funny that we bring up the smiley face killer. Oh, it's not funny. It's actually, it's terrible. I'm sorry.
Yes.
One of my college professors, his roommate in college was actually murdered by the smiley face killer in New York City, which is a terrible.
And he was murdered while he was his roommate, right?
While he was his roommate, yeah. He was out with him that night.
Holy cow.
He was out with him that night, and then one day he disappeared, and there was a huge big hubbub, and no one could find him, and then they found him in the Hudson or the East River in New York City, and his body was floating near a smiley face that was painted.
Wow. So it
was
the smiley.
Terrible. It was the smiley. Yeah.
Do you think this was a serial killer? Do you think they're just drowning? I don't know. I still can't say definitely I'm sure of either, obviously, because I don't want to. Also, I'm just that kind of person that I never like.
Yeah, she won't commit. She's not very good at commitments. I think that there could be a serial killer. Hear me out. There's just a lot of people that go missing that show up in the lake, regardless of them being intoxicated, them being out, this social thing, that social thing. It's just a little eerie in my opinion.
We should ask a psychic. That'd be kind of crazy.
Third episode of Chicago Serial Killer. I really don't want to make another episode. I don't want to hear that there are more people in the lake.
I don't either. Lastly, I wanted to read some comments from the first video that we posted, the podcast in December, because they are the reasons why we're making this one, and because they have some insight into this as well. And if you comment here, hey, we'll probably read it in the next episode, so leave a comment. 5 hours ago, actually, someone said, "Thank you for covering this. Chicago won't admit it in fear of scaring tourists away."
Yep, that's what I said.
1 day ago, similar deaths happening in Austin, Texas and Houston, Texas. 7 days ago, the cops sweep it under the rug. It has actually been going on since the 90s. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Illinois, and many others. The detectives in New York that are retired are still working on these cases, spending their own dime to do so. They know it's a group of serial killers, so that's the one that I just read. 7 days ago, it's real obvious that there's a very smart killer.
Killer.
It's real obvious that there's a very smart serial killer in Chicago. The cops don't want to admit it because they don't have a clue. It's probably a cop. 10 days ago. Thank you for talking about this. I heard about the serial killer theory when Peter's body had been found. A lot of my classmates had known him, and now another person has gone missing in very similar circumstances. This theory apparently goes back to the early 2000s and resurfaces every now and then. This isn't normal. I haven't been to the city in a while, but as far as I know, it isn't easy to accidentally fall into the river.
Wake up, Lori Lightfoot.
Someone commented, "This is another one," linking a YouTube video. 12 days ago, Abdullah wrote, "Today's news in Chicago. Seamus Gray was last seen leaving a bar on Genesee Street. He'll end up dead in a river within a week or so. I think you're onto something. This has been going on for years, and I'm noticing it for the past year." 2 weeks ago, 24-year-old young man went missing from my neighborhood, had been missing since February 17th, I believe, and was found 2 days ago drowned in the river in Lincoln Park. Came through Pittsburgh a handful of years ago. Someone said, "No one's going for a swim in January. Sorry, the number of men that have ended up in the lake with the, oh, he went to pee excuse from investigators is way too high. Eventually, you have to start looking at the cops as either incredibly incompetent or in on it."
This is a PSA for everybody in Chicago. Pee your pants if you're out. Don't pee in the lake. Just pee your pants.
Just wear. And this episode is sponsored by. Depends. Wait,
you may smell. You may stink.
Pull-ups.
You may be wet and uncomfortable because it's first warm, and then it slowly cools down, and it's gonna be uncomfortable, but it's better than death.
Someone said it's not only men, mostly men, but 2 females that I know of. One of those victims was a friend of my sister's. I'm sorry about that.
I'm really sorry.
Someone said another body was found last night in the river. Peter's cause of death was released today. Alcohol, intoxication, and drowning.
Of course, because the cops are covering it up.
Someone said, "People don't just fall in the water. Come on, people, think about it. This doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. Serial killers on the list." I'm committing to something. I think it's a serial killer. What drunk guy alone is gonna go on besides my dad? It's gonna go balance on the break wall in Chicago.
Oh God.
You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't seem likely.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Cauldron Convos.
I already said that, but sure, I'll say it again. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Cauldron Convos. I don't know how to leave this to next video, maybe, to part 3. Hopefully not. Knock on wood, actually. I don't want to be making another video.
Maybe we'll go more in depth on Smiley Face
But
Killer
I guess if there's anything
theories
released on the 3 that have already happened, we'll talk about it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any comments, thoughts on this, theories, please leave a comment. I would love to hear them. Make sure to subscribe as well, and I'll see you guys next time here on Cauldron Convos. Bye!